What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And today I wanted to make a video talking about 4 potential moves that the Kansas City Chiefs could make at the wide receiver position in free agency. So I haven't made a ton of free agency videos yet. I'm way behind this year. The legal tampering period is on Monday, and I barely made any videos about who I want the Chiefs to grab and whatnot. But I wanted to talk about wide receiver because that's a big position and one that I think the Chiefs could potentially be active in. Now, we did hear from James Palmer of NFL Network that the Kansas City Chiefs are maybe going to run it back at wide receiver. Their plan is to bring back Juju. They expect big things from Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore next year. Going to bring back MVS. It's going to be kind of the status quo at wide receiver. And I'm not sure I totally believe this, but even if that's true, they would still have to bring back Juju in order for that to happen. I don't know if that's going to happen because it's very possible that Juju Smith-Schuster prices himself out of Kansas City and the Chiefs have to go in another direction. So that's why I'm going to be making this video, to talk about 4 potential moves that the Kansas City Chiefs could make at wide receiver in free agency, and we'll talk about what this wide receiver group could look like next year. So let's get into it. So let's start off with that first possibility, the one that everyone would probably like to see, and that's bringing back Juju Smith-Schuster. This is the number one option for the Chiefs. I think this is what they want. Juju Smith-Schuster is a great fit for the offense. He was great in Kansas City this year. He had a good year that could have been a great year if not for injuries and concussions and stuff like that. But the concern with Juju Smith-Schuster, the one that you'll mainly see and hear about, is that he's going to cost a lot of money. The wide receiver market is not good this year. Juju Smith-Schuster might be the top wide receiver in free agency. And so, therefore, there's going to be teams that are desperate for a wide receiver that are willing to pay a premium for Juju Smith-Schuster just so they can have him on their team. Right now on SpotTrack.com, they have Juju Smith-Schuster getting about $14 million per year. I'm in the camp that Juju Smith-Schuster for $12 to $14 million per year is a good deal. I mean, if you just consider the wide receiver market, getting a guy that probably would have been a 1,000-yard receiver if not for injuries, that's a really good deal. I mean, Christian Kirk got $20 million per year last offseason or whatever it was. Tyreek Hill got paid. Devontae Adams got paid. We just saw Robert Woods, who had 500 yards last year and got cut by the Tennessee Titans, get picked up again by the Houston Texans for like another $17 million over the next 2 years. Like, this wide receiver market is just crazy right now. And so, yeah, Juju could get expensive, but I think if you can get him 12 to 14 million per year, yeah, you bring him back. But I think any more than that, you're probably pushing it a little bit, and you might be overpaying for Juju Smith-Schuster. And unfortunately, this is a reality we may have to face, that another team pays Juju Smith-Schuster. But option number 1 for the Kansas City Chiefs in free agency when it comes to wide receiver is Juju Smith-Schuster. If you can bring him back on a reasonable deal, that's what you do. That'll be your free agent move at wide receiver. All right, so now with the next 3 suggestions, these are going to be guys that the Chiefs should go after, or that I'd like to see them go after if they cannot bring back Juju Smith-Schuster. Option number 1 for me that I would like for the Chiefs to look at is New York Giants wide receiver Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton isn't a guy whose numbers are going to blow you out of the water. He also has some struggles with catching the ball and having drops similar to MVS. He's very MVS-ish, actually. He has a little bit more of an advanced route tree, and I think he's a little bit more explosive than MVS. But when you talk about a guy that is, a little bit lengthy, has good speed, and struggles to catch the ball sometimes, very MVS-ish, for lack of a better term. But Darius Slayton, had 700 yards last year, over 700 yards with the Giants. That's kind of been his number. Like, you can just pretty much chalk him up for having 700 yards receiving, a couple of touchdowns every year. And he's the type of guy that I think his numbers could possibly explode playing in an offense with Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback in Kansas City, because you also have to keep in mind with the Giants, I mean, that's a team that's had awful quarterback play for the last several years. I know Daniel Jones had a decent year this year, and he just got paid. but before this year, he was not good. But Darius Slayton, he's only 26 years old, and Spotrac has his market value at only $3.5 million per year. If the Chiefs are trying to run it back at the wide receiver position, and they can't, Darius Slayton would be a great option because of how cost-effective he is. The Chiefs could do everything they want and more at all these other positions, all these other needs that they have. If they could get a guy like Darius Slayton for just a few $1,000,000 per year, like, I would love that signing. That would be a really solid signing. Yeah, Darius Slayton can be frustrating sometimes, but he's an explosive player, very underrated. He's a quality receiver, and I would love for the Chiefs to get someone like that. And you could roll out Darius Slayton, MVS, Sky, Kadarius Toney, and maybe a rookie you throw in there as well, maybe a rookie draft pick that you pick up. But yeah, Darius Slayton, I would love to see him on the cheap if the Chiefs cannot bring back Juju Smith-Schuster. All right, next up, suggestion I got for the Chiefs at wide receiver is Adam Thielen, recently released by the Minnesota Vikings. Adam Thielen is 32 years old, but he's coming off a season in which he just had 700 yards, 6 touchdowns, and he became a cap casualty for Minnesota. They wanted to move on. But it's been reported that Adam Thielen values playing for a Super Bowl contender with a great quarterback, and we think the Chiefs might have a need at wide receiver, which makes Adam Thielen a fit. And this would be a guy that the Chiefs could bring in for just 1 year, maybe 2, and he can be productive. We've seen him be productive recently enough that it's not far-fetched to think he could come to Kansas City, have a quality year, and maybe fill in for Juju Smith-Schuster and what he did last year. But Adam Thielen, I would really like this signing just for a year if the Chiefs can't bring back Juju. Or even if the Chiefs can bring back Juju, I would even be interested in bringing in Adam Thielen. Why not both? Especially if he's going to be cheap and he's willing to play for cheap, playing for a Super Bowl contender and playing with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. And again, the Mahomes effect, I could see Adam Thielen coming here and maybe taking from the fountain of youth and seeing his numbers go up playing in this offense. He's similar to almost like Michael Thomas, who's not officially a free agent, might not even become a free agent, but people have talked about him maybe coming to Kansas City on a 1-year deal because Michael Thomas has some crazy cap hit next year, and the Saints may very well cut him. And if that happens, he's a guy that maybe you could see the Chiefs give a contract like they gave to Juju Smith-Schuster last offseason, where it's just filled with incentives, and you basically pay him nothing if he never plays for you, but if he's really good, he can cash in, stuff like that, maybe get him right under this athletic training staff. But that's besides the point. Adam Thielen, he's a good quality veteran free agent wide receiver addition that I could see the Chiefs making if they can't bring back Juju Smith-Schuster. And now for my final suggestion for what the Kansas City Chiefs could potentially do at the wide receiver position. This isn't even a guy that's a free agent, but he's a guy that we know that is available and that we've heard the Chiefs link to. And that is, of course, Arizona Cardinals wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. The idea of acquiring DeAndre Hopkins seems to be one of controversy in Kansas City right now among Chiefs fans. Some people don't want him at all, think he's old, think he's washed, his contract is not worth it. And then there's people like me that would not be upset with acquiring DeAndre Hopkins, and here's why. DeAndre Hopkins just had 700 yards receiving, over 700 yards receiving in 9 games with Arizona last year. He was suspended for those 6 games at the beginning of the season for PED use, and then he had a lower body injury that ended up popping up towards the end of the season and limited him. Now, look, it's fair to be concerned about the amount of games that he's played over the past couple of years. Some of it has been due to injury, and then he had that 6-game suspension, which, that was a lot of games that he didn't play, but it's unfair to throw that in with the rest of his injuries because that's not an injury. He's only had a couple of issues, but he's still been very productive. Yes, it's been 2 years since he had that 1,400-yard season, and that's a little bit concerning, but if you acquire DeAndre Hopkins, you're only going to have him really for another 2 years. And I think it's a safe bet to assume that DeAndre Hopkins at least has 2 more years in him of being a productive wide receiver. He's not going to be here for the long haul. His contract is expensive, but the bright side to acquiring him or trading for him is even though he's a little bit expensive, his 2 years and $54 million still remaining on his contract the Chiefs would not be taking on all that. If the Arizona Cardinals trade him, they will be owing him a lot of money in dead cap. It'll count against Arizona, not Kansas City. So you'd only be paying DeAndre Hopkins like $17 million the first year. Not bad in this wide receiver market, not horrible. And then you'd only be paying him like $14 million the second year of the contract if the Kansas City Chiefs were to trade for him. That's not really that bad. The caveat here, of course, though, is that the Chiefs would probably have to give up like a second-round draft pick to get him. And I think you could do worse things with that second-round draft pick. Some fans may just be happier if the Chiefs were to draft a wide receiver with that pick instead of trading it for DeAndre Hopkins. I can understand that. Or just drafting someone else in general. But you could do worse with that second-round pick. I think DeAndre Hopkins is still a really good receiver. Maybe not top 5 anymore. I still think he's a really good receiver, though. And he has this aura to him that he's open even when he's not open, really. And Patrick Mahomes has never really had a receiver like that at his disposal, an elite contested catch guy that just you can chuck it up to him, and he's going to come down with it. You can trust him. Mahomes has really never had that in his career. He's never had a receiver quite like DeAndre Hopkins. But the Chiefs do have the opportunity to potentially pair him with DeAndre Hopkins. So we'll see. I definitely think that, if all else fails, a trade for DeAndre Hopkins isn't the worst idea in the world. But those are my 4 suggestions for the Kansas City Chiefs at the wide receiver position in free agency. I expect DeAndre Hopkins to be dealt not too long after free agency starts and sometime before the draft, and that's why he's being thrown in here. I know he's not technically a free agent, but so yeah, guys, that's all I got for this one, though. But I really want to hear from you. Who are some wide receivers that you would like to see the Kansas City Chiefs look into this offseason if they can't bring back Juju Smith-Schuster? Or are you really hoping for the Chiefs to bring back Juju Smith-Schuster? Let me know in the comments. Would love to hear from you guys. With all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. I will see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs!